welcome to the AirPower Airwaves, the AirPower Manufacturing Solutions podcast series where we talk about manufacturing issues that impact you. Hey, this is Travis Stirewalt with AirPower. Welcome to another episode of AirPower Airwaves. I'm pretty excited today. We have some special guests in here, but today is our first podcast that features the tool division or the assemble division of AirPower. And so this episode of AirPower Airwaves is with Cleco, an AirPower partner, AirPower vendor partner. And I know we have a good history. We have a long history. And we're going to go down that path today. I want to introduce our guests. First off, I want to welcome Anthony Zimmerman. Anthony,
hey guys.
welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
And then I'm going to introduce to my left a longtime friend of mine here with
AirPower,
Jerome Wood. You've seen him on videos in the past as well. And so basically, if we're going through this podcast, if we're going to be doing a kind of a show and tell here with products, and obviously a lot of talk about history and the companies and this and that. But if you're listening to the AirPower Airwaves podcast on Stitcher or Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever, I want to invite you to go to YouTube, to the AirPower channel, or to go to the AirPower website, or just go to airpowerairwaves.com, and we'll put that address up here. Go to that address, and you can click on this podcast video and see everything that we're talking about. So we actually have... I know we've got CellClutch, CellCore, and CellTek here on the table that we will be addressing in a little while. But I guess right now I'm going to turn it over to my guys. How are you doing?
Good, man.
Doing great.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Welcome to the new studio. This is the second podcast here. Jerome works for AirPower. He's never seen this.
First time seeing it, yeah. I mean, I've seen it through a few of the videos, but first time being here. So it's
very cool.
It's impressive. I like it.
Thank you. The Amanda worked really hard in this room. We all did, but this is kind of a lot of it's Amanda's vision and her willingness to get it done. I see they can't see this right now. We might show them a clip of it, but we started having everybody that does a podcast here gets a brick on the wall. And so you guys both signed your brick today.
Yeah, we did.
Brick number 7. And so good deal. All right. I don't know who wants to go first. Let's talk about why we're here in the first place. There's obviously a vendor partnership here.
Yeah.
You guys at Cleco have product. We have customers.
Yeah.
We go in and we implement the relationship between us and the customer. We bring you in to fulfill the need the customer has. So let's talk about those products, the history. Let's talk about Cleco history. Where did Cleco get started?
It was actually Cleveland, Ohio.
Right.
That's what Cleco kind of stands for, Cleveland Pneumatic Company.
Right.
It's been around for we've been around for 120 years actually, the Cleco brand. Obviously, we're under the Apex Tool Group umbrella now. But yeah, I mean, early days it was a lot of tools, obviously, but moved into pneumatic tools, right? And then, I think it was 15, 20 years ago, probably even longer, started getting into like the electric tools, the DC tools and stuff like that. And I know we've been partners with AirPower for, 25 years, something like that. So, and you guys were part of that, that foray into electric tools, right? But now, as we are coming in today, our main focus is definitely going into new markets, right? Markets that we haven't been in. We've always been focused on motor vehicle, right? So we're kind of branching out there, and a lot of help from you guys on that. But cordless is what we've focused on most of our efforts in the recent time. So that's kind of, from then to now, that's kind of where we're at.
Did Cleco have like early on? You say Cleveland, and I'm very familiar. I love that town. So, but I've done the reason why I love that town is it takes me back to when I was beginning in the industry out of college. The first trade show I ever attended for work ever was surfing, the surface finishing show, downtown Cleveland in 1996. So that takes me way back to like the very first exposure into industry, and it was great. But the city I have a lot of friends there, great city. But I want to say this I know that plating was hugely impacted by that town through automotive. So is that part of you as well? Did Cleco have a real strong automotive early on background maybe in Cleveland?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that Rust Belt was big into automotive, right?
Oh, yeah.
That was everyone's focus back in the day, and they had all the manufacturing, in the neighboring 3 hours away in Detroit.
The gods of chrome.
Right, exactly. So no, I mean, yeah, obviously, everyone around there was typically serving automotive customers, right? And Cleco was no exception to that.
Okay.
But as far as the plating industry and all those things, I think, if you look at the automotive industry, typically the suppliers to that industry set up shop right around there too.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So that was kind of the big thing. And Cleco's moved around. I know it's been in Texas. Now we're in Lexington, South Carolina, as far as where headquarters are. But yeah, I mean, Cleveland starting out, that's definitely one of the reasons. For
Gotcha.
sure. For sure.
So you want to touch a little bit of the history with Air Power in Cleco?
Yeah, so as we touched on earlier, I believe our history really goes back about 20 years, mid-90s, I believe it sounds like. So I obviously was not around back then. If we ask some of my colleagues, shout out to Mike Justice, possibly one of the most in-depth general industry tool chronologically library in his head there,
Oh,
so
yeah.
he'd be able to really dive into it. But I think that partnership really appeared when we started getting into the tool market, Air Power as a whole, and it's grown quite a bit since then. But we really started out with the pneumatic side. Speaking of the Cleco-matic tool, grinders, pulse tools, stuff of that nature. My personal introduction to Cleco was the grinder world. So talking about plating and the steel industry and in the rail yards, that's where I got my introduction to Cleco. But it goes back about 20 years or so, as we said, to where it is now, which is where I really geek out now in the precision fastening world. So
Oh, yeah.
that's kind of what my focus is on, even though my boss would probably like me to hear to say it covers the whole wide range of tools, but
Yeah.
my focus is really kind of precision fastening.
So let's talk about you for a minute.
Yeah,
So you started on with Air Power as an account manager.
yeah, about 8 years ago now.
And so you started, so I started.
On my birthday.
I started over. That's nice.
My start date is on my birthday, so happy birthday to me. Here's Air Power.
So you started, I started like end of February, 1st of March, 2014.
Yeah.
So I know, Kevin Averett was around that time, maybe a little bit before me.
Yep.
And then were you 2014 or you were in?
I believe if my math is correct, it would have been 2013, December.
Okay,
December 7th,
all right,
2013.
So there was a lot of activity going on with new blood into Air Power around that time. So
Yeah, there was. We have a lot of hires from that 2 or 3 year span that
Right.
are still with us today.
but it's just the amazing impact that it's had for Air Power, and I kind of wanted to segue into that, is into the tool market. Like, Air Power, prior to me being with Air Power, I was in the industry, but I was selling powder coating. I was working in the powder field, right? And Air Power was the game to be networked with in the Carolinas.
Yeah.
North, South Carolina, up into Virginia. that was who I wanted to network with, and who I was hearing in the field were who had GEMA in that region, still do. So for me, it was a natural progression to work with them in the field, and then by a sheer stroke of luck, I guess, they approached me about a situation they had, and it worked out great for both of us. So, but I've always known AirPower as the finishing. If you needed the paint equipment or the powder coating equipment or whatnot. And it's been pretty remarkable to look back, now that we've done several podcasts, look back at the history, and you see the history in the pumps. The Aero back in the day, then you see the progression from that into looking for ways to help the industry, and AirPower makes a move and makes a change or adds something to the mix that ultimately customers are asking for, that need to be filled. And now we've gone through more of the simple tooling to more complex tooling. Now we have a hub of some brilliant individuals at AirPower that I've heard them. You can walk down the hall and you can hear it. Somebody calls in and is just losing it, trying to figure out how to work this, or can you save me because the tool's down, the line's down. And they calmly walk them through the process, and they get them back online. It's crazy. James Stanley, Mike Justice, just fantastic. So I know I'm leaving others out, but now you look at the senior management of the company, and you have heavy tool knowledge impact.
Yes.
President of the company, Dan Semp, started out running the tool division for AirPower. Yep. Now, think about that impact, okay? Then you look at Kevin Averett, was an account manager, then into tools, if I remember right.
Right. Yep.
And then now, he's over all specialists in the company, and technical specialist, application specialist. Kyle Crawford, account manager, moved into tools, and now he's a sales manager. Right. So tools have really become a very serious part of our business, and it's another reason why I'm really glad that you're here.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So we that's the cool thing about a podcast. We can go down.
Yeah, with that, to cap that off, I'll say this. There's a reason I pushed hard to get into that tool group. We have a really strong group of minds that work together in there, and we're able to tackle solutions for customers that otherwise, without that collaboration between our intergroup and Cleco and our vendor partners, that we may or may not, you can't do it alone. So
right.
There's a reason I pushed real hard to get into that.
If you take that same thing, though, and you look at the different divisions of AirPower, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
AirPower understands that having that knowledge base allows us to make quicker decisions and more efficient decisions for our customers. It's not always the cheap fix, right?
No.
Sometimes it costs money to make those fixes. And, by doing that, AirPower understands that we set up our company to where if you are somebody that needs something done in the finishing arena, a process improvement, a system, a booth, paint mixing and metering, PD2K, whatever it is, we have people, most of us don't have to go back to the vendor. Yep. We have such a strong knowledge here.
I was going to say that.
And then sometimes you bring in the vendor ahead of time, and you just go in together to deal with it. So you've got an all hands on deck scenario. And, you guys saw, we walked through the Atg Lab today too. And, those guys have projects it's like you wrecked your set city back there. But same thing, a bunch of really good minds that are focused on delivering. So let's talk about this. We're going to move it forward. Let's talk about our route to market with Cleco, with I'm not going to mention other names because this is Cleco's time. But let's talk about that. AirPower's a distributor.
Yep.
customers either come to us or we go to the customer, and there's either a need presented or we present something that they need, they just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that. What happens in that process once we determine?
Yeah, so from my side of things and my process, a big reason why I really enjoy what I do is because we're, again, I mentioned it earlier, we're a solutions provider, right? So the path looks like this. I mean, we have a base core of customers, and then we obviously are pushing to gather more customers, but they come to us with either it can be as simple as I need this tool, right? And we're able to provide that tool part number, but the beauty of it is they come to us with problems more often than not. Or not necessarily problems, but advancements they need to see.
Okay.
And we're able to analyze that application, take a look at what they're currently doing, what they say they need to do or want to do, and piece together a solution with Cleco products or any of our other vendors, and tailor that solution to the application itself.
And I mean, that could be, we need more parts out in the day. We need less rejects
Sure.
that are coming back
Yeah.
with things that
Yeah, a
aren't
lot.
fastened together properly. Or so yeah, I get that. Okay, cool.
Well, I think it's important to say too, when we partner with somebody, right? Especially when I'm talking partner, I'm talking like high level partnership like we have with AirPower. What's important to us is we can give them the tools, we can train them and let them loose, right? And they know how to set the tools up, troubleshoot, and do all that stuff. And the nice thing with working with you guys has been, you guys know what you're doing, right? You guys are experts in this just like we are. So we can do the trainings and stuff like that. You guys let loose and go. So it's been really good in that way.
Well, what's really cool about that is though when you have a customer that's complicated, not complicated and hard to deal with, but their need is a multi-level problem. And at those times is when you guys just make that call, and the account manager with AirPower knows that he's got a team of super people behind him, and that he has he or she have an amazing confidence when they walk into the customer, that they know that they can handle anything that they throw at them. And the hardest job, I think, for the account manager is trying to get all that data together so that when they come back and they present it to the team, they're doing it in a way to most accurately deliver the problem.
Exactly. Communicate what
that problem is.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned the account manager, because I did gloss over that in our path. Our account managers are the base and heart and soul of what we do. We obviously would not be able to do it without those guys. I mean, they're in the facilities all day, every day, and they're the local point of contact for each of their customers.
Yep.
All communication is routed through those guys. So we do our best and strive to have those guys trained and ladies trained as well as we can and up to speed on everything that we do, but we task them with so much. I mean, we task them with not only tooling, but finishing and applied fluids.
Yep.
So they have to be able to touch on all three of those competencies. So it's a supreme value to them to know that they've got the specialists in all three of those competencies behind them because my focus is simply tooling. Account manager runs into a tooling application and they call me, or their respective specialists. So.
Well, so I'm an application specialist in another division as well, and I know there are account managers that in my particular specialty, there are account managers that know that business real well.
Yeah.
But they still call me because they have so many things that they have to think about, and so many problems across finishing, fluid transfer, tooling. They've got so many things that they're, an account manager's there to sell, right? They have so many products and solutions they're selling that it's just good to have somebody else to help you think it through and make sure, hey, this is what I'm gonna quote. What do you think? And 9 times out of 10 on the experienced account managers, I'm like, yeah, man, that's you.
Yeah.
Go for it. You know what you're doing. But there's sometimes that they call and they don't remember that there's been a change, because again, they've got 1,000 products over here,
Yeah.
and they call and they say, yeah, what about this? I'm like, no, there was an email. I mean, I sent that out. We've had a conversation, but you want to check on this because, and here's why. And they're like, thank you. I remember that now.
Yep.
And I'm sure in the tooling market, man.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, let's talk about something here. Yeah, we're going to get into these later, but I'm sure each one of these products right here do a lot of different things.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And they can, it's just like in any other thing that we do. A lot of our products have a lot of functionality, a lot of things that they can do. So you've got to walk through that carefully. Something that I know a little bit about was CellTour.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how Cleco creates demand in the marketplace. You guys are in charge of your brand,
Yeah.
not Air Power. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Talk about how you guys go to market, how you drive or bring people to Cleco.
Yeah, so I mean, CellTour is definitely one way. That's a big way, right? And it's getting the tools in front of people, putting it in their hands so they can, I can go to any customer in the world and show a presentation, and it never does it justice, right? I mean, there's some wow factors on things that we might do.
Hands-on beats it any day.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, from a high level, we start with the tool, right? And we want to tell people, here's why this tool's different, right? Here's why it's better, in these certain aspects, and we select those attributes, very carefully on what we want to be better at. So we try to tell people about that, right? And then we also create videos and things that are easy kind of to digest. We put those on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and stuff like that. But the meat of our demand creation is really putting tools in our sales guys' hands, tools in your guys' hands, and then also the CellTour truck. So the CellTour truck, just in a nutshell, is basically it's a mobile road show. And what we do is we put all the tools that we can on that truck, and we kind of show, and we'll get into more of it, but we show a typical application for a clutch tool, a quality critical application, and then a typical application for CellTek, which would be like a safety critical, right? And we showcase that, we put them in their hands, we take them to the plants, we get as many people involved as we can, and we're there to answer questions, right?
Weren't we the first?
I'd like to say we were.
Were we one of the first stops this year?
I believe so. I think
it was right here at High Point.
I believe
Yes,
so.
We shot a video about that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the stop
Just
here
a
in
quick-
High Point, definitely.
I think it was once everybody started rolling again, post COVID.
No. Yeah.
And I was over here working on another podcast, and walked outside, and there the Cleco truck was, the CellTour.
And I'll tell you what, man, we rolled the dice on that. I mean, we knew the COVID restrictions. We anticipated them lifting a little bit, state by state, but
Yeah.
we had the truck on the road, and there was still some places that were hard to get into. 'Cause
Oh yeah.
even if you don't have the state, you could have a company, right? The company restriction. So you just never really knew, but it's
we
been
know
good.
all about that.
Yeah, oh yeah, I know.
We still see it today.
Sure.
Every plant's different with requirements and check-in procedures. So,
Absolutely.
And county to county,
Yeah.
in every state. So
Yeah.
it's nuts. What do you guys see as the challenges right now? Are there challenges in the industry that are being I go back to where technology changes. I remember back when we had a piece of oven testing equipment, and it required a serial port in your computer. You had to have your computer on site, right? To put the adapter into your serial port, and it connected into the data logger, and you had to have that. And then all of a sudden, none of the laptops had serial ports.
Yeah.
So you had to go find a converter, And then after a while, you couldn't hardly find a converter. And if you found one, like Amazon or something, it's awful. So then eventually those laptops got old.
Sure.
Or those the everything that had serial ports, where we kept a laptop just to run that program on and that logger on. Anyway, I say all that to say this, that it took a long time for some of those companies to go, you know what? Maybe we should re-engineer that to a USB, since everybody's using USB now.
Right.
And they did, and everything's all, gravy now. But I'm sure are there things that you guys have dealt with? The battery world is hot right now.
Oh, yeah.
Super hot. I mean, you get a chainsaw with a battery in it now.
Yeah.
So talk about that.
Yeah, so I think, if we're splitting up, I would split up challenges and trends, right? I think challenges that we're seeing right now, definitely elephant in the room. There's a chip shortage. Most people are aware of that, right? So I think everyone's felt the effects of that. I'm sure you guys have, as well.
Yeah.
Just with different suppliers. But I think, the other thing too is capital spending's down this year, right? So I think from a challenge perspective, those are two of the things, the headwinds that we're facing. The chip shortage is not only affecting, maybe some of our stuff, but also the people that we supply to. So, an assembly line or something like that we might have set a date for May to ship tools, they're moving it back to September, because they're not building stuff. So those are sort of the, I would say, challenges that we face. As far as how fast technology is advancing, it's not like we're a DVD manufacturer or something like that. You know what I mean? Or a CD manufacturer in the world of MP3s. Our stuff doesn't change quite as quickly. But some trends that we're seeing, I would definitely say, kind of getting more into the trend side, we've seen a lot of people switching from Wi-Fi to Bluetooth. As far as communication of cordless tools, right? So anyone that doesn't know that, our tools can communicate either Wi-Fi or Bluetooth back to the controller or plant or whatever. That's a big one. And I'll tell you the reason why. You were on your laptop talking to IT earlier today, right?
Yep.
So in these big plants, these giant facilities, right? Maybe not so much of an issue at a smaller facility, but some of these giant facilities, when they go Wi-Fi, they have to get a lot of support from their IT department. I'm sure you guys have ran into that before, right? So, when they go Wi-Fi, they got to assign IP addresses, network map, all this stuff. And what really the problem is like, they have to get those IP addresses and get all that information from IT. They have to submit the tickets. They might need, Ethernet drops within the plan and things like that, right? And they want to get away from that. That's probably a big one that we've noticed in the last 5 years.
Yeah,
3, 4, 5
I'm
years.
saying that a little bit as well, and it's my personal opinion. It's a little bit of a shame too, because the Wi-Fi capability that you have. I mean, one of the major advantages of that is that you can locate your controller elsewhere away from the application,
right,
and still run the tool communicating with that controller via Wi-Fi and a router, Ethernet back to the network. So it's a shame that the trend is going away from that. But I do understand it, because cybersecurity these days is priority. You've got we've seen it very recently throughout the world. I think we were all scrounging for gas a few weeks ago.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because of that. So I understand it, but there are some capabilities that we don't have with Bluetooth, right? So that we may have with Wi-Fi. So.
Yeah, and it's crazy too is with Bluetooth, it's kind of how it communicates, right?
Yeah.
We won't go into details about that, but the find an empty highway and run.
Mm-hmm.
We run into and I say we, like I'm saying really our customers and with our tools, we'll run into situations where they are having problems. So you go into some of these plants, they got Bluetooth speakers, they got microwaves, they got all kinds of transmitters and stuff like that will interrupt that signal. And I'll tell you just one quick funny story about that. And this was actually, I believe, on Bluetooth. We were in a facility, obviously can't say who, but we were in a big facility. All right, we had a line of cordless tools that was right next to the break room. So every day around like 12:30, our tools would fall offline. And of course, we get the call and they say, hey, what's going on? These tools are falling offline every day about the same time. What's going on? And immediately, it's like something's wrong with the tools. So we kind of deep dove the problem. And what happened was they had a bunch of old microwaves. So they were going and heating up their lunch, about 12:30. And it was so strong, there was such an interference. And, by the way, we designed these tools to not get interfered with and not interfere with other stuff, right? It's certified for that to a certain level. But it was strong enough, all those microwaves popping off all at once would knock the tools off the network.
Hungry man taking down the tools.
So again, we talk about the limitations of Bluetooth.
Fish sticks!
Yeah. We talk about the limitations of Bluetooth, man, and that's the problem is you don't have control over that sometimes. So, with Wi-Fi, just backing up your point here, Jerome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Big advantages.
So you told them they needed to replace all the tools, right?
Yeah. But you know what? Really
well.
great. We told them to stop
You
eating
bought
lunch.
them.
Replace
You bought
the
them 4 microwaves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's a big enough facility. It was like 30 or 40 microwaves.
Holy
It was
moly.
crazy, but yeah. So.
See, y'all are a bit younger than me. I remember being in like 3rd, 4th grade, and I went to a small little church school, and there's like 100 of us in the whole school, right? So my class, 1st grade, we got like 20 or something. I don't know how many we had, maybe 175 in the school. But we had like 20 kids in our class. And I'll never forget the first day we came out into the lunchroom, which was the gymnasium with tables that came out of the walls. And we sat down, and there was this magic box sitting right outside of the little kitchen area. We did not have a cafeteria. It was too small of a school. Little magic box sitting on top of that. And the teacher was like, we now have a microwave. If you bring something from home that needs to be microwaved, you can stand in line. And we were like, oh. So we're all trying to figure out what can we bring to school to put in the magic microwave.
That's
Yeah, like it was crazy. So yeah, that dates me. Yep. And I had a black and white TV too, so don't laugh at me. Y'all probably never even saw a black and white TV.
Oh yeah.
Oh, did you?
Oh yeah.
You're missing the gray and the beard. I'm not as young as you think.
Oh, okay. We talked about Bluetooth. Let's talk about ergonomics.
Yeah.
That's a big factor, and I know that in the industry. So many, I recently heard a conversation about the effects of ergonomics on the medical impact, the medical need in the industry. Now, we've seen a lot of videos on other products like that are not with these, but like what is the name of it? Levitor or whatever. You Levitate.
Yep.
The products that are actually just helping you move your arm, helping you take the stress off of that. Because tools can get heavy.
Absolutely.
And we deal with ergonomics at the finishing side, the finishing guns like these up here. It's all about the weight and the impact on the wrist and the impact on the trigger finger and, how much pressure it takes to move something. So I'm sure in your world it's a big impact. Some of these tools are not lightweight.
No. It's a huge impact, and we there was a company that did a case study, then they shared the results with us. You cannot put a price on safety, right?
Correct.
But they attempted.
But they do.
But they did. But
They do it every day.
So obviously we want people to go home the same way they came in, right? And our customers do too. So don't take it that way. But they did. They said any sort of lost time incident, on average, costs about $75,000. So that could be a day, which wouldn't be as much, or more than that, right? These longer term effects, things like that. So I would definitely say, Europe kind of led the way in formalizing ergonomic standards, but North America, China has we've done a really good job in both those regions, kind of following suit and making sure that the tools are lightweight, ergonomic. Operators, I would say, have a lot more influence than they did 10 years
They
ago
do.
on the decision, on the tool purchasing decision. So, you know, if you got a good price, you got good performance for the mechanical engineer or the manufacturing engineer, and you got good ergonomics for everybody, like the operator, that's important to the operator, and speed and things like that, that's a big deal as far as helping, you know, get the sale or more beyond that, right? Just be the best tool for the application.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's where we see a lot of times that the challenges, you mentioned earlier, the challenges stacking up one on top of the other. And I mean, it's easy for us to go into a place and have a customer say, hey, I need a tool that can do, hypothetically, 150 foot-pounds, right? And yeah, we've got a tool for that. Here it is. But the challenge on top of that is, well, I also need it to be reactionless. Okay, now that's throwing a whole new wrench into it, and I mean, literally, yeah, and torque, and you need to make sure that we educate the customer on torque. Torque's a real thing, and it's dangerous. It can be dangerous, and so that's where our expertise.
That's why they call it kick.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
and that's where our expertise and Cleco's expertise comes into play on how do we accomplish this goal for this customer and meet this challenge and tackle it for him with what he needs and with a solution that'll provide everything he needs.
Yep.
So,
very complex subject.
yes. Yeah, and I mean, that's just scratching the surface of it. I mean, it gets much deeper than that. I think maybe more time than we have today. I don't know. But
So the last two that we had talked about early on to discuss with this were speed and the controller on the tool.
Yeah.
Were also challenges. So I'm assuming speed is we're not talking the RPM or are we talking the speed of being able to get everything done? I guess they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, I was going to say they may tie in together a little bit more than you think. The speed of the RPM of the tool a lot of times directly affects how quick you can get your job done, and that's what the operator wants.
Stick it on there.
Yeah,
That's right.
Exactly.
It might be great, but it's really slow.
Depends on the takt time of the application and how many products we need to get out of that cell within a certain amount of time, whether it's minutes, hours, whatever it is. So
Yeah.
So controller on the tool, I see right here the core. That's the CellCore, right?
Yes, sir.
So that has a controller on it.
So
is that a controller?
So there's really two. So that has a double meaning, and I see what you mean by that. So both with core and tech, you can program stuff on the tool,
Okay.
right? Basic stuff, not advanced, what we call linking groups and things like that. But you can do basic rundown programming on the tool. Much more, I would say, much more widely used on a CellCore type tool. But when I'm saying controller on the tool, the first one to really do it was in Germany, right? There was a company in Germany to implement a controller on the tool. But what we typically see is, you know, the very advanced manufacturers, and I'll just say high-end motor vehicle manufacturers in Germany. All right.
Okay.
Some of those guys are willing to take a lot of risks as far as new technology. But what happens is once those things get proven out, they end up making their way into the other regions, right? Not to say that they're further advanced, but it is more of a risk taker on technology.
Yep.
So what I'm saying by that is, you know, we're going to talk a little bit about controllers later, but you know, the way a controller works today is, and the way I always try to explain it to people is, you know, you got the controller on the wall, and the controller tells the tool what to do, right? The tool tells the controller, here's what I did, and then the controller tells the plant, here's the results, right? Here's what happened.
All right.
Right? Very high level. What I'm saying is controller on the tool is talking directly to the plant now.
Okay.
So the plant or the tool might know what to do, right? You can program it to know what to do. But the tool is no longer talking to the controller, it's talking directly to the plant in plant language.
And when you're talking about the controller or the tool knowing what to do, you're talking about the exact amount of torque or the exact distance or okay.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and what we do and what we can do is we can scan a VIN, right? A VIN on a vehicle or a serial number on a washing machine, right? We can scan that, and when we scan that, the controller or whatever, but the controller will tell the tool, okay, this is a XYZ vehicle, and it will say do 10 newton meters.
Okay.
And then as another vehicle comes down, you scan that VIN or serial number or whatever, it'll say, okay, no longer 10 newton meters, do 15 newton meters and run this application.
All right.
So it brings a lot of versatility to the tools, especially when you start, app selecting with barcode scanners or location tags and stuff like that.
And I'm sure a lot of that reporting that goes on with the communication will tell you the length of time that's been in service, how many times it's done its revolution of a particular application, and then based on your knowledge of the tool, you can educate customers that listen, when you hit about this line in the field of the number of applications that it's been through, or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
When it reaches around this area of service life, you need to either bring it off, let's rework it.
Some maintenance needs to be done.
Yep. Maintenance needs to be done because
Yeah.
the more you utilize a tool, some of the tools that my dad still has from the 80s still work fantastic, but he's taken really good care of them,
Yeah.
Now you buy a tool, the joke is at the big box stores that now I'm buying throwaway tools. You don't expect it to last that long. You expect it to last for a few years, and then you're going to go back in and buy it. So taking care of these is just as important, and knowing its life expectancy before it needs. Can these tools be? We have repair centers at Air Power.
100%.
Do we work with Cleco on our repair center?
So we do, yeah. The Cleco tools we can repair in-house. I believe we have some stipulations in place for warranty items.
Yeah.
Okay.
Warranty items do have to go back to Cleco for repair. However, anything outside of that warranty item, we do have the capability to repair in-house.
And that's where the customer has to make that decision, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Right.
what's it going to cost? And, I know we have rules in place, like if it costs over a certain amount of money, which is a pretty low amount. If it's going to cost over this, we're going to automatically put a hold on it and approach customer and say, it's going to cost X, we estimate, to fix this, so you need to make a decision. So,
and those rules are flexible. We're able to tailor those to each customer, and our service shop does a tremendous job of communicating to the customer. Hey, this is the quote to repair your tool. This is what a new one costs.
Yep.
We advise or not. We advise replacing, or we may just say, yeah, it's worth repairing. So.
Yeah, it depends too, because again, I had mentioned earlier, capital budget spending, right?
oh yeah.
And every company is going to be different. Our company is going to be different than anywhere else too, right? On what we say, okay, we need to capitalize this amount. But if they do initial buy of 50 tools or something like that, and then it goes into the maintenance guy. Now it's his budget that he has to decide: do I repair the tool or do I replace the tool?
Right.
And I think we'll probably see an upswing of people repairing stuff rather than replacing in the future too, I would think.
Yeah.
Well, don't you think also the engineering and the quality that's gone into some of the tools will change that as well?
Yeah.
It's going to impact that
Yeah.
for sure. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's where Cleco, to give them a little plug here, and we're sitting here with them. I think that's where they kind of lead the market.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because I've seen their testing facilities for their tools, whether it be the NeoTek spindles or CellCore, CellClutch, CellTek. And they truly test them the way they advertise they test them. You walk in and you see tools being run down continuously for 1 million cycles, I believe.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, so I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. But
Yeah.
that also reminds me of the ATG Center.
Yes.
And so we'll discuss that later. But you guys have a dedicated training center, so I'm looking forward to going down there.
Yeah.
And if you're wondering what I'm doing back here, I'm taking off the non-sponsory label from the water bottle.
I
I'm
was
sorry for
running
the
around
extra
for
noise.
you.
Yeah, I looked over there. I was like, oh man, I put it there. It wasn't Jerome's, it was mine. So, all right. Let's talk about the cordless portfolio. We'll go right into products.
Yeah.
So I have the three that you wanted me to announce. So the first one we're going to talk about is CellClutch.
Yeah, so I think even before we get into the individual, I'd like to just say kind of what our thought process was,
Okay.
4 or 5 years ago, because when we thought about this portfolio, we weren't thinking individually on CellClutch, CellTek, CellCore. We thought, we wanted to have a portfolio that covered everything and go after specific markets, right, in specific regions and things like that. So, we wanted, if you think of it in the simplest form, it's kind of a good, better, best, right?
Okay.
Now for us, how we classify stuff is we classify it as functional joints or non-critical joints, quality critical joints, right? And then the very most important is safety critical joints.
Okay.
So what we say good, better, best, but what we wanted to do is really go after each one of those categories, application categories, right? And then, with CellCore was more of a aim for general industry outside of automotive. I mean, we have business in automotive too, but that was kind of the goal, was to go after that. So, with all that being said, CellClutch is our newest tool. It is a clutch tool, if you can guess.
Let's talk about that. What is a clutch tool for those that are watching that don't know what it is?
So, a clutch tool is basically it's a mechanical tool, right? The torque is measured. It's not measured really. The torque is controlled mechanically. So what happens is, there's a spring that's loading a clutch, and once the torque on that clutch, is greater than the basically the holding force, it slips. Okay. So when it slips, the tool detects that, and then shuts off the motor. It signals it to quit running.
So basically, when you're driving a nut or a bolt,
Right.
when it hits that certain torque or resistance, it stops.
Yeah.
It will not continue pushing it in. Unlike my dad's drills that for
The
drywall,
CellClutch.
and you put a wood nail right through.
You drive it as
Just
good as you
keep
wanna go,
going,
yeah.
drive it to China.
But if you think about that, though, that's a good point to make, though. If you think about that, the mechanism is similar, right? Now, the tools you buy at some of the big box stores, the accuracy on those is nowhere even close, right?
I know that from experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The accuracy on these guys is very, very good. But the difference is there's a sensor in here that detects that clutch slipping, and that's what shuts it off.
Okay.
So it signals to the operator that's good to go.
Perfect. So that's a clutch, CellClutch.
Yep.
So now let's move to CellCore.
Yep. So CellCore is a transducerized, what we classify as a transducerized tool. And again, for those that are unfamiliar with transducer tools.
Hand me this one, and then we'll put that one over a little farther. Make
Okay.
sure it's in
That's
the
a good
view
call.
of.
So a transducerized tool, basically what's happening in a very high level is the motor's turning, right? And there's what we call a transducer. Basically, it measures torque, okay? And as the motor's turning, the transducer is talking to, we'll just say back to the motor. There's a lot of stuff going on in between there. But the transducer's talking back to the motor and saying, hey, if I'm targeting 10 newton meters, for example, like, hey, I'm getting close, okay, slow down. And then as it hits torque, and I'm way oversimplifying this, but as it hits torque or gets close to torque, it'll shut that motor off.
Okay.
So what's happening is you call it a closed loop system, okay? There's a lot of parts in there I'm leaving out for any experts on, they're probably rolling over right now. But
James Stanley will be hitting us.
I know, James gonna
yeah.
email me.
You missed out on the Newtonian equation.
Yeah. But that's what it is, and there's just for James, there's a servo in here. We know that, but basically that's what's happening, man. And we use I would say a highly accurate transducer in CellCore.
Okay.
right? The cool thing about CellCore is you can talk directly to a controller, to the controller, in that basically what I outlined earlier with the controller and the plant and all that stuff that's going on, tool language to plant language and blah blah blah. But you can also run this in standalone mode. So if you got a customer that wants, hey, I want a very accurate tool, you can still collect data and pull it off the tool. It's just not collecting in real time. So if you got a customer that doesn't need to shut the line down, right? If there's a bolt that's under tightened or let off early or something like that, CellCore is a great option for them. It's a big step up from a clutch tool as far as accuracy and collection too.
Yeah.
Okay, dope. And then you went to the next one, which is CellTek. I'll take this one right now.
So our big, so this is a safety critical tool. I said this has a very accurate transducer. This has what I would say is a very, very, very accurate transducer. Okay, there's reasons for that. Operates the same way though. You can run this in standalone mode. I would say the majority of our customers are going to run this in with a controller. Okay, because this is safety critical. These are the types of applications that you should halt production to fix.
And it's a level of insurance and safety.
Yeah.
Probably integrated with some type of MES system or data collection system.
Let's
actively.
For those that are not as familiar with it, let's talk about why precision torque is important. I think it's again, some people are rolling their eyes. Simple, but to some it may not be that simple. They just don't understand. You just tighten it up till as tight as you can go, and then you're good to go. So who wants to start on that one?
So I mean, what I can plug in there is something I learned fairly quickly when I came into this industry. The misnomer is more torque, or the tighter, the better. Right. So that's definitely not the case. Over torquing in some cases, depending on the application, can be more hazardous, or just as hazardous, or more hazardous than not enough torque.
Let's talk about a real life scenario.
I mean, prime example: seatbelts in the automotive industry. We need to know that we have that seatbelt bolt that's anchoring you to that seat in the event of an accident is torqued properly. If we over yield that bolt and put too much stress on that fastener, if we're over torquing, that is, that impact and that stress from that impact could shear that bolt head off, and that seatbelt fails and does not do you any good at that point.
Right.
And
I never thought about that, but I never thought about that application ever.
Yeah.
But if you over torque that bolt, you've already got tension on it.
You may see it with under torquing as well. I mean, like I said, it could be the same or worse depending on the application. But that's just one
great example of where over torqued could be worse than under torqued.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
Perfect.
I think too the way I explain it to people maybe new to the industry as well is like, for a functional bolt, for example, if you miss one, the end user, the person driving the vehicle will stay on the MVI, for now. The person driving the vehicle is likely never going to know if you missed a bolt.
Yep.
Think of a skid pan. I changed oil and all through college, and you'd have 40 bolts on a skid pan, which never made sense to me. But you miss one, right? No one's ever going to know that. A quality critical application is something that someone's likely going to notice, but it's not going to affect the primary functions of the vehicle. So think like if you missed a screw on a speaker in a door, and that eventually came loose, started rattling, or the speaker started rattling. They're going to take that in for repair or warranty or whatever. That would be quality critical. You gave a great example of a safety critical, which basically means if this thing failed for one reason or another, it could hurt someone or worse. And that's how we kind of internalize the different classifications for these tools.
Perfect. We just covered the cordless portfolio.
Yeah.
Let's move over to corded. I have one product here, NeoTek.
Yeah. So NeoTek is our newest offering. It is a fantastic tool. So that is million cycles maintenance free is kind of the big claim to fame with that one.
Okay.
But also, I don't manage that product line, but we have the cord that we use in that, right? We went from kind of an analog cord in our legacy series to a digital. So the weight of the cord and the thickness of the cord is greatly reduced. So those are, I would say, two of the big things, which plays into the ergonomics, right? Two of the big things from NeoTek. NeoTek's a very fast tool. So we talked about keeping up with takt times or cycle times or whatever. NeoTek has a very wide range of torque ranges as well. The nice thing about 110 volts, right, that you're running through the corded tools, generally speaking, right, is that those tools can be much faster, right?
Okay.
One of the things that, not to go back to cordless, but one of the things that you can be limited by is the voltage of the battery. The thing that's helping with that, especially on CellTek, being a very fast tool, is the efficiency of the motors have gone way up. And the technology in the motors and tuning the motors has gone way up. But that also applies to corded tools as well, like NeoTek.
So, I mean, you look at all the different, like if you go to any big box stores, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have all of these battery operated, a plethora, right? They have its own aisle now of just battery operated tools. And one of the biggest things that you'll find is that some of those batteries are really good and some of them are really bad. Like they lose steam quickly. And I know that's going to change based on, how often it's used.
Yeah.
Like in what repetition and for how long of a duration are you using that battery? So, I mean, is it if somebody approaches you about these tools, is it one of those things where you almost have to put them online in their application to find out how long things are going to last?
No, not actually. We've done a lot of work working on it. Still not released, but we've done a lot of work working on a simulator. So we can go in there and say literally like, okay, it's 75 degrees in this plant. It's you're going to run down 3 bolts per minute. Here's the angle of the joint. Here's the threshold angle. Was getting kind of deep, but you can put in all the parameters, right? Of very detailed level parameters, and we have an estimate based on a 5 amp hour, 2 amp hour, some of the extended, Milwaukee, right? Some of the extended 3.0, right? The extended cell, but.
So
we
this
can
is
estimate
what,
the number of rundowns.
This is the 2.0?
Yeah, these are the 2.0.
Yeah.
And the 3.0 uses the new, I don't remember the number of the cells, but they use the new cells that were recently released to market.
Okay.
New cell designs, yeah.
So the Neotech being corded takes the battery out of the equation.
It does. Yeah, it does. I mean, there is absolutely always going to be a place for corded tools. It's still a bigger market than cordless right now.
Are ergonomics a big thing with corded tools because you have that, that pull on that cord? Yeah. You always got to deal with it.
Yeah, that's something that customers these days are really looking at, ergonomics. We've mentioned it multiple times now, but yeah, it does play into it, and that's kind of where we as AirPower have to look at whether or not we maybe use a torque arm at that point.
Okay.
To not only absorb torque reaction, but take the weight of the tool and the cord off the operator. But we see these NeoTek tools, and we use the NeoTek tools and corded tools in general a lot in more fixtured, possibly applications. And we can dive into that a little bit later as well. But ergonomics, all that to be said, ergonomics plays a lot into it.
You were involved in a video last year.
Yes.
During COVID, later on, where you guys actually did it through a GoToMeeting or Zoom or something. We did a call, And is it okay to mention them in this video?
I believe so. I was about to ask the
Yeah.
same question.
So-
Because it's not competitor.
So
to
it's not a
Cleco.
competitor,
Yeah.
and you'll probably know the name when he brings it up.
Yeah, so we partner with a lot of different ergonomic torque arm vendors. I'm going to see one tomorrow. Actually, I'm flying out to work on a project with a vendor tomorrow, who I strongly partner with. But yeah, FlexArm is who we did the video with last year, and it was successful. It was great. Have a great relationship with those guys, and we use them for that specific need. Whether it be a corded NeoTek tool, or I mean, you may find I know it kind of defeats the purpose, but the application fits. Sometimes you may find a cordless tool in the torque arm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Imagine that, right? A completely fixtured application with a cordless tool on it.
Yeah,
You got to change the battery on it.
yeah. So
It doesn't.
it doesn't make a whole lot.
Yeah.
So that I was
That's-
trying to tee you up here.
I'm like-
exactly. Why?
So here's the reason though.
I
is
think I
that-
swung and missed the ball.
No,
I was like,
no, I was
that's what he wanted. I could tell what he
Oh, I
was
teed
doing.
you up, yeah. So no.
But it's a really good battery.
So no. One of the big advantages, with a cordless tool versus a corded tool today, is James will like this one.
You never have
These
to change
have-
the battery.
Yeah. So the cordless tool, we implement a servo on board the tool. Okay. Being a lower voltage, we don't need all the heat sinks and things like that you might need for a servo on a corded tool.
Okay.
I'm getting complicated, but basically what it means is we can run on our controllers up to 16 tools on a single controller, whereas with a corded tool, you can only run one tool per controller.
Okay.
So while yes, it might be a little more work to change the batteries every shift or change the batteries at lunch or something like that, it's a pretty large cost savings than if you can have one controller with 16 tools versus 16 controllers, 16 cables, 16 tools.
Yeah.
All right. So question. These here, I can tell you that if I have a tool at home, a drill that has this on it, or an impact driver that has this on it, I never know how much battery life I have left.
Mm-hmm.
I just know when it goes boom and it dies.
Yep.
I don't see that as being a positive thing in a manufacturing environment to where you want to understand where you're at. Do any of these tell you, hey, here's where your battery, as your battery life's going down?
So we don't actually have that on the tool. We obviously, you can
Okay, right
read it
there.
out on the
Yeah.
front there.
Yep,
if you can see
perfect.
I
that.
don't know if they can see it on the camera.
Yeah.
But I can tell you right now.
I didn't even see that, so.
I can tell you right now, our customers, after using these probably 2 or 3 days, they're going to know when they need to change the batteries.
Yeah.
The other thing is too, with these tools, we can set low battery thresholds. So it's completely dependent on the application, but basically we can say, don't shut this tool off until you see X voltage. So if you want to go 13 volts or 15 volts or whatever it might be, you can set that low battery threshold.
Perfect. All right, now you mentioned them, so we're going to go into controllers.
Yeah.
Now I have written down here M Pro 200, M Pro 300, M Pro 400. Talk about the controllers. First of all, what is a controller, and how is it implemented? How do we use it?
Yeah, so I'm going to use this as a prop
Yep.
because it'll help me. So basically, again, just to reiterate, the controller is an interface to the plant right now. The tools and controllers, think of it as like a translator. The tool and the controller are talking back and forth in tool language, okay? The tool tells the plant what it did in plant language.
Okay.
Again, very gross simplification, but
Oh yeah.
that's kind of what it is in a nutshell. And the controller has a lot of stuff. Like I said, we talked about the barcode example where we can load up an application when a certain barcode is scanned. And we can say, look for these characters. And, if you see that, then it's, try not to use model names, but it's vehicle A. If you see this string of characters, it's vehicle B. And it'll do the correct application based on that as well.
Okay.
So a lot of capabilities that we're not really talking about today, which is fine, but in a nutshell, that's what the controller is doing. what we have is similar strategy on controllers. Really, we have a sort of a good, better, best on controllers as well. So our Impro 200 series, which I think we're going to flash some images of that up, right? The Impro 200 series is a cordless only controller. There's no screen. You can connect a monitor to it. You can actually use your cell phone to connect to it, and program the tools, only cordless tools for that controller.
Okay.
Then we have one step up from that, which is a corded only controller, which is our Impro 300. So this is a very slim version of a previous controller that we had that runs corded only tools. Okay. The Neotech. So I should say it only runs Neotech. But that is that has the servo built in, right? Does not have cordless functionality. I'll say in the future, we're looking to add cordless functionality to that version of our controller and do some cool stuff there in the future. But anyway, but then we move on to the Impro 400, which I'm speaking specifically about the hybrid controller, but the Impro 400, and it can run a corded tool and up to 15 cordless tools all at once.
Oh, okay.
So you can have a corded tool, and one of the things our customers like to do as well is like they might be running a corded tool on an Impro 400. They might have 5 or 6 Neotechs that they're running, and what they'll do is they'll say a tool needs to be serviced, they'll keep cordless tools as backups to replace those tools. So it's nice, they can come in, put the tool on the controller, and they're back up and running without any time, basically.
Perfect. Yeah, that's the beauty of the 400 controller. We've got a customer right now that we're working with to pair new cordless tools to their existing 400 controllers that they're running corded tools on.
Yeah.
So it's a great way. It's flexible for expansion in the growth in the future. And so you're able to add as new product comes down the line and still not have to replace the entire system.
Yep, we've got some simple videos that we just filmed. They haven't been released yet or anything. We haven't even edited them yet. Of James working with a couple different controllers in the lab. So I'm looking forward to.
Well, one thing to also mention here is when we started out on this, our big thing with this ties back into controllers, but our big thing with the cordless line and controller strategy was we wanted all of our cordless tools to be on one battery, one charger. We wanted them all to speak Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, both built in, just like a cell phone, right?
Okay.
And we wanted them all to be able to talk to our controller, to one single controller family. We're going to be the only company in the industry with that. I didn't plug it, but this is early next year. We're going to have a Wi-Fi Bluetooth both built in to our clutch tool.
Okay. All
yeah.
right.
So it's going to be a programmable clutch tool, but also a communicating clutch tool. We talked about Bluetooth not being what we would recommend, right? Wi-Fi, it's going to be one of the first, I believe, to have Wi-Fi built in to the tool as well. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So
very cool.
Very excited for that. I know our customers are excited for that as well.
Super user friendly at that point.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Well, I mean, the more things that you can plan on being ready for, it fits different applications. So,
yep.
You guys know that the people out there from plant 1 to plant 2 to plant 3, it could be the same company, plant 1, plant 2, plant 3. And each one of the plants wants something a little bit different or special, or a little bit of pixie dust here and a little,
They want it their way.
Yep.
I guess Burger King, isn't it? They want it their way.
They want it their way for sure.
Well, it's funny too. When we develop products, I mean, you wouldn't believe the amount of different pieces of information we get. And we got to try to. The hard part for us is product management, and marketing, and stuff like that. Is really figuring out, all right, what is the core set of requirements and things that we want to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? And sometimes you have to filter out those little sidebars, but that's the tough part for us, for sure.
Before we got onto this podcast, before we started, you guys were talking about spindles.
Yeah.
Let's
Good.
go down the spindle rabbit hole. What's a spindle?
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to tackle it or I can jump in. I mean, so a spindle differs from what we've been talking about so far in the fact that an operator is not going to hold a spindle. I've had operators try to tell me, yeah, we can run this thing. Well, typically there's no trigger on the spindle, so there's no way for the operator to hold it. You're going to find a true spindle in more of an automated fixtured application, whether it be a multi-spindle or single spindle application. Prime example for a multi-spindle are wheel nuts. You see it all the time, whether it be 4, 8, 10, whatever it is. You'll have a multi-spindle end effector, for lack of a better term, that has 8 spindles on it, and you're running all 8 wheel nuts at the same time.
So you're like, wheel goes up.
Yep.
This
Wheel goes on.
comes in and it's got, let's say 5 right here.
Yeah.
I had to look. Wheel goes up and it puts all 5 in at one time, and then it moves back here and does this, or they might have 2 that go on one side, flip it over, and do 2 more, whatever. All right, that makes sense.
And that's just one example. Anthony could probably touch on a multiple, wide range of different examples. But
And it could be any configuration too. You know, you could, if you were putting a panel on something, you know, if this was something that needed to be attached to something, it's a square, and you needed 4 bolts, maybe 1 in the center, whatever.
Yeah.
It just goes up, and you're doing all 5 of them, 4 of them, or whatever at one time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that's a great example, right? The wheel nut is the number one application for sure. But another good one too is like if you have sequencing that's really important. Like if you're trying to set a gasket, right? And you don't want to tighten this down too fast.
Right.
You know, you're squishing it, moving around. So that's another really good application.
And you could lay it in or however you need it to.
And they're synced up, right? They can be synced up and made sure that they're running down the same amount.
Yep.
You know.
I know what a spindle is.
There you go.
Now, it says conventional versus intelligent. What's the difference of the two?
That I'll probably need to let Anthony speak to a little bit.
Yeah, so we were talking about servos, and I won't go into that, but basically a conventional spindle, you can only run 1 spindle per controller. Okay. The reason that is because the servo is located on the controller, right? For the intelligent spindle, we actually have a patent on this. It's one of the best spindles in the industry for sure because of this. We've had great success with it. We actually put the servo on board with the spindle, okay? And we can daisy chain the tool. Why does that matter? Basically, again, cost savings, right? You only need 1 controller for multiple spindles, but also space savings for all the cords.
All right.
So now I don't have to run, say I got a 5 lug nut application on a wheel. I can run 1 cord back to 1 controller rather than running 5 cords back to 5 controllers. So space savings, cost savings, obviously time and cable festooning savings. So, yeah.
You talk about, like with a spindle system, there's really no way to go, well, what's the ROI on that? Because in many cases, it's like you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And, what do you want to do? Have one guy up there with setting the wheel up and then, whatever. It's like, it's invasive on your physical person, as far as the ergonomic standpoints. You've got issues with time. The spindle just comes in and knocks it out.
Yeah.
So, the overall impact would probably have to be a gargantuan cost savings with the volume that you could just get out the door.
Exactly. Yeah.
Compared to the other way. So it's not even a...
Well, even upfront savings, there's definitely a crossover point where 1 or 2 spindles might not be advantageous on a intelligent spindle.
Yeah.
But once you hit 3, 4, 5,
I would say 4 is probably the limit.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of the cutoff point there.
You actually see an instant cost savings. So it's a real instant. And
so I'm thinking, with the wheel thing, you're thinking a really big application. Mm-hmm. They can probably be done in smaller applications too, where you just need repeatability, fast, and production oriented moving.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
We've done applications as small as 4 spindles, true 4 spindles, as small as maybe a 4-inch square pattern.
Okay.
So you can get them tight, and especially with the intelligent spindles, the Series 1, I believe, we can get the size on those spindles as long as the torque fits the tool.
Was it on some kind of a line where parts are moving down through?
So it's on a line where the operator's feeding parts into a fixture, and they
Okay.
slide it in, and then it comes down and hits it.
Wow.
And then moves on out. So
Boy, talk about speeding up the
yeah. So
assembly process.
the ergonomic and toll on the operator is just right off the bat what you see as far as the advantages of doing something like that. Where the math comes into play a little bit more, and you mentioned ROI, is the speed. How much does this speed up our productivity? How much more product can we get out the door, just like you said? And that's where we focus on trying to help the customer prove out their ROI and justify the investment.
And I know you guys have very detailed ways of doing that. I've seen you
Yeah.
guys sitting down, kind of hammering out the board
Yeah.
in the assembly.
It's all
Office.
about time and product movement.
You know, moving that delta.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I want to get back and talk about the ATG Training Center.
Yeah.
That's really our last topic that we have firm here. We will be going. We've been invited to go in and shoot a feature. Pull up a little bit. You're gonna hook. But do a feature over there. I guess it's in. Is it in Apex, North Carolina?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's over Raleigh direction,
It
right?
is.
Yeah. And so, what is the ATG Lab? What's the ATG Training Center?
Yeah, so basically what it is we have, I don't know how many square feet it is, but it's a really big training center. And we have all of our different brands from hand tools, which would be, your Crescent, your gear wrench brands over there. The Global Power Tools brands, right? Cleco, Weller, Apex. And what it is just, it's kind of I wouldn't say a horseshoe, it's a circular training center where we bring customers, we can bring distributors in, we can bring new employees in, and teach them about our products, right? We just did one for CellTek with AirPower, right? I think
Okay.
what was that, a couple months ago?
Yeah.
Jerome?
Yep.
So, hey, we're teaching you what's the main features and benefits of CellTek, what's the main features and benefits of Clutch, then we go a little bit deeper and say, here's some other cool things that you should know about this and what gives us an advantage, right? But that's kind of what we go over. We use that where there's a classroom setting, there's a hands-on area, and then obviously a lunch area. But they get to see. I think it's great for our customers to see that, hey, we do sell this Cleco stuff, but we are a bigger company in the fact that we sell these other tools as well, and probably gives you guys an opportunity, especially like Job Box, right?
Yeah.
There's applications every day you guys go in and see probably some form, if not Job Box in some of these
exactly.
facilities. So it's good to know what else is out there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, the ATG facility, I mean, me and a few of my account managers, we've really pushed trying to get customers out there because it is a great resource for us. Anytime that we can get the customer out of their facility and down to a training facility, they like getting out of the plane every once in a while.
Right.
Yeah, just like we
But
all
that immersion and exposure is huge.
Yeah, we're able to.
It's a field trip.
Yeah, we're able to immerse them in a whole lot more off-site than we were able to carry. My trunk is only so big. I can only carry so much on my back,
Yep.
so I can't carry our whole portfolio on my back, right? So being able to get them into a facility like the ATG facility, we're able to get them up to speed on what we can do for them a lot easier.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Guys, I think that's about a wrap.
Yeah.
Cool.
Covered a lot. Anybody want to add anything else? Want to add any to it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure going back through it, I could add a whole lot to it, but we'd be here for another hour or two. So
Maybe we'll just have to do a round 2.
yeah,
Hey.
We'll
We got
finalize
it.
that later.
Yep. That'll do it.
So anyway, thank you very much for joining us for the podcast. Couple things to run down here. If you heard of anything that you want more information about today, couple things. Call 1-800-334-1001. and just tell them that you need to speak to somebody regarding Cleco tools, and they will get you into the hands of this gentleman over here, or an account manager, or a technical specialist, and we can definitely handle that. We would appreciate that. If you want to see more videos or more podcasts, if you enjoyed the podcast, we're going to put it up here again. Airwaves.com is where you can see the list of our podcasts. As far as podcasts go, anywhere that you listen to podcasts, anywhere, just look up, do a search for Air Power Inc. or Air Power Airwaves, and you should find it there. I want to thank Anthony Zimmerman.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate
Absolutely,
you coming
man.
in. You got to sign the wall already.
I did. Number 7.
Signed the podcast number 7 brick.
Yeah.
Jerome,
Travis,
thank you very much.
Yep.
And you signed the brick as well,
I
so
did.
we have you guys legit in the studio now. So those podcast bricks are filling up. We got 7 already filled up, and we're scheduling a bunch more podcasts moving forward. But again, find us on social media. Anywhere you go to social media, all of the filmed versions of this podcast are always very first available on YouTube. So the YouTube Air Power channel, but YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all of the above, we post all of those. So I want to close out again today by saying what we always say when we close out Air Power Airwaves: manufacture it a great day.